Okay, we're going to leave the stomach behind. Keep in mind there's that pyloric sphincter at the bottom of the stomach that's going to open wide and allow that chyme to flow downwards into the small intestines. This is where a lot of the absorption takes place across villi. Now, villi are just folds of the small intestine. Okay? Think again of the past. If we're being chased by a lion, we can't afford to have this huge small intestines just flopping around. And so our body folds it and then folds it again. And the second folds are called microvilli. So we have that surface area for absorbing nutrients. The lining has goblet cells, and so if we eat something that has lots of bacteria, then our body releases mucus and we get that wonderful flow of diarrhea. Accessory organs include the pancreas and the liver. Here, exocrine glands, which think of exit, they're going to release digestive enzymes into the duodenum, and that's that first section of the small intestine. Also bicarbonates, because if you recall, chyme is very acidic. It has hydrochloric acid. We need to buffer that, and that's what the bicarbs are for. There's also endocrine glands in the pancreas, and these are releasing hormones such as insulin to regulate our blood sugar. The liver has many jobs, and one of them is to convert cholesterol into bile. Now, these bile salts are little crystals that are stored in the gallbladder for when we need them. Let's say you have that big Thanksgiving meal, and the sphincter opens up, and the bile salts, it's a common bile duct, is going to allow a sudden surge of bile salts into the small intestine. Now, sometimes these bile salts will collect and form these huge crystals. Well, they're more rounded, like well, they're called gallstones, and they look like rounded stones. As bile flows out of the gallbladder, the CCK hormone is causing the gallbladder to contract, and so we get that squeezing action, and especially if the meal is really fatty, a lot of grease in that meal, then we're going to get a lot of contraction and a lot of bile. Now, if you lose your gallbladder, you still release bile, but you just don't get that sudden surge that helps with a big fatty meal. Once the fat globules have been broken up, and there's a fancy name for breaking up fat globules, and it's called emulsification, then they flow eventually into lacteals of our lymph system and onwards. And this is why sometimes you have a fatty meal and you feel tired or sleepy. It's because there's several steps involved with breaking apart lipids or fats. Whereas proteins, they're easily broken into amino acids, and carbohydrates are broken into monosaccharides pretty easily. So it's the fats that take a lot of work because they're loaded with energy. The colon, also called large intestine, has a chamber called the cecum. It's a pouch that absorbs water, and it has a small finger-like projection called the appendix. We're not sure what the appendix is for, but it seems to contain beneficial bacteria like a reservoir. So let's say you have severe diarrhea and all the contents of your colon is flushed out. Well, you need bacteria to digest your food. And that is why you have appendix, at least according to some authorities. Here is the colon. We have an ascending, which is going upwards. We have a transverse going across. A descending, which is going down. A sigmoid, think of S-shaped. And a rectum and the anal canal. The different sections of the colon. There's many roles of the colon, but one of them that's really important is absorbing water. I learned this when I was in the Coast Guard. If we were lost at sea, we had a long tube, and we'd put salt water in there from the ocean and pump it up past our rectum into our colon, and the colon would absorb the fresh water, leaving some of the salts and the debris behind. So we drank water right across our colon. Now, this isn't done anymore. I'm an old guy, and the techniques have improved since back then. There's also bacteria in the colon, and they produce vitamin K, other vitamins that we don't produce much of, and we don't have much in our diet. Some fatty acids from the food, or really the debris in our colon, is absorbed back in the bloodstream. E. coli is one of the important bacteria in the colon because it helps us, but of course if we eat someone else's, then we have problems. Anytime we have coliform contamination in our food or drinking water, that means it's from a fecal source. Not a good thing. A little summary here, and I have something to go with it if I can get it to upload here. Yeah, appetite influenced by leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin's the hunger one. Leptin is the one that makes us feel satisfied. And we can either eat concentrated food, or we can go through a bariatric bypass. And in this case, we're going to, you can see a slice by the inferior portion and the superior portion of the stomach. Those come apart, and we're going to bypass part of the duodenum, that first section as well. See right there, we're cutting past the duodenum, and we're going to connect it to the upper part. Kind of crazy, but it works sometimes. Okay, adipose, going on to the left side now. Enamel, dentin, pulp, saliva, different types of salivary glands, the parotoid, submandibular, sublingual. On with the summary. Here, the GI means gastrointestinal, and I think you'll like this. This is a nice review if I can get it to run. It has the, here it comes, yeah, digestion. It has a good overview. So if we look at the digestive tract, let's just take a peek here. We have chyme right here, and it's going to come down. And remember the liver's job, the liver is going to release substances. So same with the bile salts. There's the small intestines there. Take a look at the villi shortly. Here we're in the small intestine. They're going to show you there's the microvilli in the villi. Okay, we talked about bile. We talked about the, there's the liver. Okay, gallbladder. That's where the bile is stored. And then we're going to have the common bile duct there. Here we go. Here's the bolus. There it goes. There's the CCK hormone at work, squeezing the gallbladder, forcing the bile, and then we're going to have emulsification. Perfect. Onwards to the small intestine, and that's where a lot of absorption takes place. But before we get to the small intestine, take a peek at the appendix. The appendix is that finger-like projection off of the cecum that we can see. It's kind of whitish in this view. Let me just take a peek here. It's not too gross, don't worry. He's poking around in there with a, there we go. It's going to lift off that fatty tissue there. And underneath is a little finger-like, there it is, there it is. I know it looks painful to watch this, but the appendix is just a small whitish, and this is healthy, by the way. I don't know why he's probing around in healthy. Okay, on to the colon, cecum, and continuing with the review. And here we have the liver, and you can see the effect of a collection of bile salts into crystals that we call gallstones. And the ones in this view are bigger than most. So most are fairly small little pebbles. Going through this review, gastrin, somatostatin. Oh, there's one being pulled out. Okay. And diet has some influence over these, but sometimes just you inherit the tendency to form these gallstones. All right. Hope you enjoyed it.